so far today. 3-2 pitch is slapped on the left side of the infield. Malloy can't get it up properly, and
I hate it when that happens.
Oh, Columbus giving us some audio gold this week. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the week 3 Tiger Minor League Report recap here over at TigerMLReport.com. I'm Rogelio alongside me is Chris Brown, and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartMedia, wherever you listen to podcasts. And before we get to all the show stuff, because we got plenty of show to get to, first and foremost, I want to thank Jeff, who donated to our PayPal, which was, I think he was the first donor we ever had. And I just want to thank him personally for what he did. He donated $100 to the site. So thank you. Honestly, Jeff, that means a lot. And he also became thank you. And we had 3 new Patreons this week in the form of Otter 8863, good old friend of the show, Mitch, and Jeff, who was the one that did the big donation. So thank you to everybody. And of course, if you are in our YouTube chat and like to participate and want to chip in for super chat, and you simply, if you do a super chat, we do something like this.
Exquisite.
Or you get the Greg Gagne.
That ball is gone. Such a all-time.
And then from the show, Mark Gurash, he put out a GoFundMe for us too. So Mark, thank you again. We didn't ask him to do it. He's just like,
I had no idea he was doing that. I don't even know how. I don't know how it works. I don't know. Yeah. I know that there are GoFundMe's for everything, and I feel a little funky about taking money. But if people want to give it to us, we do appreciate it. So, that was amazing. A lot of really generous people out there, and we can't thank you guys enough.
Thank you, seriously, thank you, and thank you to everybody in the YouTube chat. Alex, Sir Dusty, Darren Beasley. Darion, what the hell's wrong with me? Stan and Aiden in the chat this evening. So, plenty to get to, though. There is the Tigers, of course. Yeah, what happened in Baltimore is the offensive ineptitude was pretty bad. However, in Toledo did not have that problem with offense, and Justin Henry Malloy will get to. There's plenty to get to that. Cole Keefe had a really good week. Down also, we'll look at what's going on in West Michigan and Lakeland, as all the exception of Erie, every team's over 500 again this week in week 3. Erie and Richmond, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is about playing down in Richmond. It's just, I don't know, Chris. Is there something in the air, the water? It's just, I don't know, man.
I don't know either. I know it's a fairly lengthy bus ride. I don't think it's the longest they take. I think going to Portland is, or wherever it is up in Maine, I think is the longest. But yeah, they were 1 strike away from going 1-5 this week, if not for some heroics late in the game. So, and that's just, Greg tells us that's just historically what happens there in Richmond. So I don't know. Maybe they see the ball like we see it from that center field camera, which is like through
Vaseline,
quarter inch of Vaseline. So I shouldn't complain, but you don't get the best view there. But there was still some interesting individual performances, which is generally what we highlight.
Yeah, and we'll start with Toledo too, because there's a lot to get to with Toledo, because the biggest thing right now is the Tigers offense. You have Justin Henry Malloy, who he's been having a very good week. He is batting to the tune a pretty impressive. Let's see here. I had that pulled up. Now it's gone.
This week he went 9 for 22.
There it is.
Hit 409 with 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So that's a 1292 OPS. Not far off actually from his season stats overall. The power is starting to show up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have kind of that perfect storm where the Tigers are not hitting, and you've got this guy playing third base right down the road who's tearing things up. And so the natural question is like, hey, why isn't he up?
And that's where we kind of, it's a kind of gray area for the Tigers right now. The Tigers believe that he can play. They'll give him a call up, but then they have to make a room for the roster and everything. But you ask how the difference is between AAA and Major Leagues. Let's ask Tyler Nevin that question, because Tyler Nevin has struggled immensely since coming up to Detroit. So you can get, again, trying to keep things in perspective. I know everybody's just like, call him up, release Jonathan Scope, do what you got to do. I get it. And it's understandable. I mean, you look at the numbers, and the numbers have indicated, I mean, we have some of the most advanced numbers. You look at Malloy. Malloy's been able to cut down his ground ball, something that we were concerned with, because the reason why is if you're going to make that adjustment at the next level, you want to make sure your ground ball level is not around 50%. And this week alone, looking at some of the numbers, it's impressive. I mean, he went down from 48% to just 40% now. And line drives, you want to have a nice, good number there, 28 to 31%. He's right there at 28%. And his fly ball ratio's up to 31%. So, well, I know those numbers sound like a lot of, well, what does it all mean in the end? Well, if he's hitting the ball more in the air, obviously his fly ball rate's going to be higher. And to me, that's a sign, especially with the doubles and home runs. That's what's going to put you at the major league level.
Yeah, and he's a guy who hits the ball hard almost all the time. So when you have a guy like that, you want him to put it in the air, because hard balls in the air are better than hard balls in the ground, so to speak. But yeah, so obviously some good progress from him there. We talked last week where we speculated that Gage Workman might be the Eastern League Player of the Week. We unfortunately did not speculate that Ben Malgeri would be the Midwest League Player of the Week, and he was that as well. I don't know if Malloy will be the International League Player of the Week, but he's got a pretty good case. Again, once again, I haven't checked the rest of the league, but 2 homers, 2 doubles, hitting 400. That's a good week. So, yeah, I mean, to get back to your Tigers point and the idea of bringing guys up, these are legit prospects, and when they bring them up, they want them to stay, right? And I just try to remind people, like, how good you mentioned Nevin, but like how good Riley Green looked, and what Spencer Torkelson was doing in the minors, and Ryan Kreidler had good numbers in the minors, and Badu has good numbers in the minors, and then they come up to Detroit, and it's a completely different ball game. Every pitcher in the majors is Grayson Rodriguez. Basically Kyle Gibson, ate the Tigers up the other day. They'll find your tiniest weakness and they'll exploit it over and over again. So, I get the idea. Like, if you just want something to change and you think Malloy has earned it, that's cool, but just don't expect him to suddenly change the fortunes of the team overall. This is a long process with this team because nobody's hitting.
And Kyle Clark brings up a really good question on YouTube here. And he says, I haven't looked into it, but has Toledo played any competitive teams in the first couple of weeks, or are they weaker teams? And that's something to consider with Justin Herman Malloy. Can he do it with against better teams in AAA? St. Paul wasn't bad. I mean, St. Paul, I think of, to be fair, I think maybe St. Paul is pretty good. I think Louisville's terrible. Louisville's terrible. And this is not the strongest Columbus team we've seen in a while, Chris. I mean, they don't really, a lot of Cleveland's good starters are in AA Akron.
Yeah. Well, in St. Paul, I think their first game was against Bailey Ober, I want to say, who just pitched for the Twins today.
Yeah.
In Columbus, and they went 5-1 this week. It was a really impressive week. We should say that. And they're 14-5 this year?
They are
14-6.
14-6, yep.
Only one game out of first place. So they're playing really well overall. They did get Tanner Bybee, who was a top 100 prospect against, for Cleveland. I'm trying to think who else pitched against them. So it's one of those things where, like, saying the quality of a team doesn't necessarily tell you anything in AAA.
Well, more or less the prospects,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So do they face any good prospects? Well, Columbus has a couple pretty good hitters. Was it Brian Rogelio, I think, came up there, or was it Aaron Bracho? I always confuse those two. But one of them got called up to the big leagues and then came back down. They've got John Kenzie Noel, who's borderline guy. Tyler Freeman's there. They've got some quality players who have been top 100 prospects. But the pitching overall, it's tough to know. I don't think that Malloy was doing most of his damage against the best pitchers on that team. But, I mean, that is something that we could probably break down. If we want to, make Jerry tear his hair out, we can find all the, top-ranked pitchers and then see how batters do against them. But, yeah, so Stan said Cleveland has 8 of Major League Baseball's top 100 prospects. They've got some good players. I mentioned Bybee as the pitcher there. So, I don't know. But you can only face the guys that are there, right?
Right.
And no matter the best AAA team in the world is still not going to be as good as a major league team. It's basically like the college football NFL difference, right? Like, oh, this Georgia team could beat the Lions. No, they get smoked.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of how it is.
And so, if we're looking at some of the data here that Jerry, we have a list. So this is part of this is some of the data we can get into every single week when we do the minor league recaps and look into things closely. And this is where you see Justin Henry Malloy right there and the league average. And by the way, it was funny. It was of all people who suggested this, it was Dan Dickerson, the voice of the Tigers. When I talked to him last week, and I'm not trying to. God, I hate when I name dropper. I'm so stupid. But anyway, no, it was a good suggestion. It was a very good suggestion. And so now this chart you can find on our Patreon, and Chris does an article on it every single Monday. But yeah, this is where he's doing above the league average and everything. And I think there has to be some sort of change. I get it. And looking at some of the numbers, you would think that based off this, but then look at Akil Baddoo, and then you look at Tyler Nevin, and so that's where it's kind of like, well, can he make that adjustment? Those kind of line drives and fly balls, what do they look like on the major league level? So
we need to get rid of that decimal point in hard hits, because every time I look at it, it confuses me. I confuse it with the hard hit rate.
Yeah, why is there a decimal point there?
I don't know. I'll fix it. But yeah, so to people who might be listening and not looking, the Akil Baddoo has is above average exit velocity and things like that. Tyler Nevin did too. Like the things we look at as indicators that they might be quality hitters. And to Dan's point, and we know anybody who listens to the broadcast knows that Dickerson really loves stats, and he loves digging into them and finding interesting things. And I think from his point of view, it's great to know how a guy's hitting the ball hard, but it's better to know how that compares to everybody else in his league. And so, yeah, we enlisted Jerry to do that work, and he spit it out for us because he's good like that. And so, yeah, I think it's useful. We there's only so much we can write about it. I think, week by week, we're just going to be talking about any sort of major changes or any signs of somebody trending up or down. But, yeah, I think it's useful. And Malloy is hitting the ball hard. And Parker Meadows has hit the ball pretty hard this week, too. And I think we're going to see him jump up into the average exit velocity. He had the hardest hit ball, I believe, for Toledo, but was hitting kind of a lot of weak balls that threw that off. But this week, what did he do? He definitely had one home run this week. I'm looking. He had Parker Meadows, 1 home run, 2 doubles, 4 walks, which is better than last week, right? He was 1 walk and 10 strikeouts last week. So 835 OPS this week. That's progress there. Certainly nothing to sneeze at. He's the sort of guy I don't think is ready to come up yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who rather have him and Akil Baddoo switch positions.
Yes. I think if you bring him up, you're going to get production that's basically exactly the same as Akil Baddoo, if not as good, because Baddoo has at least experienced it before. I think Meadows would struggle pretty badly at first, but that's a move that we'll probably see him in Detroit later this year, and definitely if there's an injury, right? But I think for right now, we just kind of let him simmer, let him cook. I don't know what the kids say in Toledo.
No, and one person on the opposite side of the spectrum this week that struggled was Andre Lipsius, who went 2 for 18 this week.
But yeah, it's like the worst BABIP week of all time. So 2 for 18 with a double, 5 walks, 0 strikeouts. So his batting average on balls in play was whatever 1 divided by 18 is. So yeah, it's like 45 or 55. Just and part of that is, we talked about last week. Part of that is he hits kind of a lot of fly balls, and if he's not hitting on the right angle, then it's going to be pop-ups. But yeah, that's just bad luck. We're still waiting for Lipsius to really get on a tear, but if he goes a whole week without striking out, that's okay with me.
Yeah, that's fine with me too. In terms of the pitching, so Will Vest got the call up after Trey Wingate hit the IL. He was up there earlier in the week for the doubleheader, and then got sent back down, and then he got the call back up. This, I believe it was yesterday. So, but as far as pitching goes, Kevin Castro's week was pretty good. He didn't walk anybody. This week's kind of theme in terms of some of the pitchers was nice to see. Not a lot of walks. Saw Chase Fry, also not in 4 innings of work, no walks, but then the bullpen. Yeah, I don't know, Chris. The bullpen today was a little different story.
Yeah, they were going for the 6-game sweep, and they were leading 3-2. And I think Zach Logue loaded the bases, and then they brought in Anuri Zabala, which is kind of the last guy I'd want to see with the bases loaded. He's got a great arm, but he loses the zone a lot, and that's what happened. And he walked in a run, and I think he gave up a double to center, and then I think scored 3 runs, and I think Magno came in the next inning and gave up a home run and a double. It was just the bullpen didn't have it today, and that ultimately resulted in the loss. But other than that, like you said, yeah, they were mostly throwing strikes all week. Brendan White had a nice week. We clipped up one of his outings where it was 2 perfect innings. So there are a few interesting arms there. You mentioned Castro. Miguel Diaz had a pretty solid week too. 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. So yeah, there are 3 or 4 arms that we'll probably see up in Detroit before too long if there are any more injuries or people struggle some more.
And we got Walter Briggs asking about Andy Baez, but he update, and he suffered an injury. I think he got hit, and he was out for a couple days.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, he only played 3 games and went just 0 for 9. So with 3 walks. So yeah, I'm trying to think. Did he get hit in the hand?
Yeah, I think it was hitting. Yeah, it was hitting the hand.
So not great. On the flip side, Ryan Kreidler went down to Toledo. He didn't pout. He hit 3 home runs and led the team with 10 RBIs. So let's see. I'm looking at his overall stats: 7 for 23, 3 home runs, 4 walks, and 8 strikeouts. He may come back before too long if they need an infielder. So it's good to see when the guys go down there and perform. But it's another reminder that the big leagues is hard, because Ryan Kreidler hit 0 home runs in the big leagues in this year. He was not hitting well when he's not playing every day, and that might just be a thing for Kreidler. I don't know.
Yeah,
his stance looks a little bit different to me too.
Yeah, it does look a little bit. Looks a lot more quieter at the plate in terms of batting stats. Let's should if you're watching YouTube here, let's see here.
Maybe.
Yeah, look at his legs, kind of little lean, doing a little lean thing there. That was interesting.
Yeah, it just looks like he's something. His bat is lower. He's quieter. Yeah, just quicker to the ball. I don't know. We'll see. It's worth looking into. But so yeah, I mean, it was a nice week for the Mud Hens all around. Brendan Hannafy, 2 solid starts. I'm trying to think. Garrett Hill made a start too, I believe.
Yeah, you know what, Chris? And this is the same problem. We were talking about this off air. Toledo's still doing the same thing that Erie's doing, where they're limiting the innings. And so, explain to folks out there, because there's a lot of teams. Like, there's been teams where the affiliates have played teams that have had players go 5 or 6 innings, but the Tigers are still haven't seen it yet. They have just the slow ramp up continues.
Yeah, so Toledo is the one team in the organization that will let guys go more right now than 4 innings. But usually only the veteran guys like a Hannafy or Godot or whatever.
And so your Long is the only other one too, right? I mean, he's had.
I don't know if has he gone more than 4.
I think he went 5 in the second outing. I'll double check that.
Yes, but so what we've seen for Wilmer Flores today, for example, I think if we're done with Toledo, we can hop down to Erie now and talk about their week. They went. We touched on it. They went 2-4 in Richmond and had to have a comeback late today to get that second win. But Wilmer Flores struggled in the first game of the week. I think he was done in the 3rd inning, maybe even the 2nd. I don't remember. We clipped it together. We did a whole special on that if you guys haven't seen it. But today, he was out there and he threw 4 innings in 39 pitches. Just completed 4 innings, maybe 2 hits, 1 strikeout. He wasn't missing a ton of bats, but they were putting the ball in play and they weren't hitting it very hard. And then he came out of the game. 39 pitches, 4 innings. It's basically their plan is to let guys go 4 innings. And that'll change, I think, later in the year. It changed last year. But it's a curious decision. We know that other teams do things like this. We know that some teams only let a guy pitch 1 inning, and it's all part of the ramp up because they want them to pitch meaningful innings later in the season. But when you got a guy like Flores who has struggled to begin the year and he's pitching well, it's kind of like a 50-50 call, right? Do you take him out after he's pitched well to make him feel better, or do you have him keep going out there and give him 50 pitches or 60 even, shudder to thought, to try to continue to hone his stuff? So I don't know. I mean, people are paid to make those decisions. We are not. I think I probably would have let him pitch another inning, but it's early in the season yet, and I don't know. On the flip side of that is the 30 pitch kind of limit that we've talked about before, where, and I think studies do show that the pitchers get injured or mechanics get out of whack when pitchers have to throw a bunch of pitches in one inning. It's those high stress pitches with men on base where you're putting everything into it, and your 25th, 28th, 35th pitch in an inning, where something goes wrong and you're straining something, or you might not even realize it, but your kinetic chain has come disconnected somewhere and you might hurt something. So that I understand a bit more, the 30 pitch limit. And with what was it, the Ty Madden's previous start, he had already gone over 30 and they were going to basically give him one more bat, and he got the guy out, but it was 35, 36 pitch inning, and that was it for his day. So we've seen a little bit of that at every level, except maybe a little bit at Toledo too.
Oh, I muted myself. No, there was interesting too about even with some of the relievers too, is that like was it Billy Lesnar comes to mind too. They've been kind of going in terms of like the Seawolves pitching staff as a whole, even with the bullpen. There's been no sure spots. It's been kind of sporadic, and it's been like you have to kind of look beyond the box score a little bit with some of the starts. And so even with like yesterday, for example, Madden had 7 swings and misses, but then you look at like that first inning where bad throw by Winfield Perez, and then a really bad throw by Grant Witherspoon from center field. That whole relay was just a strange thing. So it's almost like, okay, well, how much of it is a product of bad defense in Erie? And this weekend against Richmond, there was a couple times where the defense just looked really it was little, I don't want to say little leagues. That sounds extreme, but just seemed out of whack.
I remember they had issues with that infield late last year, in I don't know if it was the playoff series or it was the final series of the regular season. So yeah, I don't know if the Richmond groundkeepers are up to snuff, but yeah, and I mean to your point, nobody has really established themselves in the Erie pitching staff yet. We had that outstanding start from Madden, and then we've seen a couple rough outings from Dylan Smith. Brant Herter has been fine, but he's walking more guys than you'd like to see. Flores, we've talked about his struggles. Sawyer Gibson-Long has been their most consistent starter. He did get rocked the one inning we were there, but other than that, he's pitched well. But even like the bullpen guys who were super dependable last year, Adam Wolf has struggled. We've seen Chance Kirby struggle. So yeah, the pitching staff is still trying to figure things out there. But you know who's not trying to figure things out? Colt Keith, who had yet another good strong week.
I almost want to call him Colt Beef. I really do, Colt Beef, because he's just been a beast. I mean, how about this Colt Beast?
Colt Beast, yeah. I've played around with a whole bunch of whenever he does he steals a base, you call him Colt Thief. Just fun things like that. But yeah, a pretty good week. 13 for 24, that'll work with a triple, 2 homers, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts. But yeah, 542, 593, 875, 1468 OPS. Somehow not the best OPS on the team this week. Mario Feliciano very quietly went 9 for 14 with 2 doubles and a walk, which is a 1474 OPS. Obviously not as many plate appearances. And then he came up limping today. I didn't hear anything more about that. There was a sac fly, I think, by Diego Rincones, and Feliciano scored, and then started kind of favoring one of his legs. So who knows? We may see some player movement in the next day or two regarding that.
I should ask. Yeah, I could ask Greg, and Greg you probably have a better answer than I would. But you know what? Cole Keith definitely deserves one of these.
Exquisite.
It was an exquisite week. Yes,
it was a very exquisite week for him. And in terms of even Actually the Rick in on our YouTube chat had some question that was perfectly timed. Who's your pick for the highest upside prospect in the Tiger system? Cole Keith. I mean, again, this is for people who are relatively new to the website. If you go to TigersMLReport.com and go to our top 25, Cole Keith's been there since middle of the summer last year. That's how much we put faith in Cole Keith, because out of all the hitters in Erie this week, and outside of Winfield Perez, who's back, who was going to be with Erie for the rest of until they call him up to Toledo. By the way, expect there'll be another nice roster add to Erie this week. I'm not telling you who it is, but you'll see a nice a familiar name there soon. That's it though. I mean, in terms of other hitters, it was kind of, you talked about Feliciano, of course, but that hit by Cabrera was pretty much the only hit he had in 10 at bats. Josh Crouch had a home run, which was great. That was good to see. But he also, I mean, he went 2 for 17. Trey Cruz, 3 for 19. Jake Colton struggled. Corey Joyce, who just came up from rehab, correct?
No, Corey Joyce he was there.
Who am I thinking of then? What outfielder am I thinking of that was?
I don't know about an outfielder from.
Who was down in Lakeland? Who was down in Lakeland before Winfield? I'm right. I'm drawing a blank. I thought there was somebody else that it was coming up. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Basically, there were, like you said, there were nobody else did anything. It was Feliciano, Keith, and Perez, and it was nice to have Winslow Perez back. A couple home runs, a couple steals, no walks, but whatever. Yeah. But yeah, and here's the frustrating thing, and we've been talking about this for a year plus now. Gage Workman, awesome week last week, right? Really playing well. This week, 1 for 14, 2 walks and 8 strikeouts. But you showed, you know what? You showed a clip earlier, and that one hit was huge. It was a double in the 9th inning today, and it was a hustle double. Most people, that's a single. He didn't slide into second base for some strange reason. I don't know what that was about, but so he almost got thrown out, but it was a hustle double, and then he comes around to score the tying run when Colt Keith singles with 2 strikes in the top of the 9th. 2 strikes and 2 outs. So, we talk about this all the time. When he puts the bat on the ball, good things happen. He's just got to find a way to put the bat on the ball more often, and if he's not putting the bat on the ball, he's got to walk more. And he has been walking more, so that's a start. But he's a dynamic player when he hits it.
Here's the thing, right? He almost got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know why he didn't slide there. Toretto we'll get to in a second. David Stewart from West Michigan. Anyway, had really, so we'll get to him. But
yeah, my answer to the question about who has the highest upside prospect in this is. It's a toss-up between Keith and Parker Meadows to me. Keith is a significantly better hitter than Parker Meadows, but I think Meadows could be a solid hitter with power and speed and be playing a much more important defensive position, which overall, could make him a more valuable player if you're into WAR and things like that. But Keith hits. He's always going to hit. I mean, once you get to the big leagues, it's you don't know for sure, but he looks at the plate. He looks the same as he did in West Michigan, as he did at Lakeland. He's just a guy who he finds hits. Sometimes even like when he doesn't hit the ball hard, it's like perfectly placed blooper to the outfield. He's just one of those dudes. So, he's certainly the guy that I want to see most in the big league lineup out of all their minor league hitters. But it's going to be a little while.
Yeah, I would, if we're gonna add another hitter to this, then I would also Roto Campos because of his age. Yeah. He's already, I mean, his numbers right now at each. Actually, we'll talk about him about West Michigan shortly. But the reason I like Campos so far is that he's been able to, for his age, has shown that okay, you know what, high A is not too stressful for him. We saw some at bats that you were when you were out in Lansing last week where he was taking what was given to him, going the opposite way, and I thought he was making really good contact. And he's just kind of scratching the surface. Again, the power numbers may not indicate that right now, but I still think that some of them are still there, and he's showing some extra base power. But what really surprised, and I think we talked about this last week too, is his defense in the outfield. In terms of size, for his size to be able to move as he does out there, I think Campos has got tremendous upside too. And I'm interested to see how he does against advanced pitching. But as far as he goes, to me, the day I saw him last year, from the time I saw him, it was just like at West Michigan. It was just like usually with Whitecap hitters in the beginning of the year, see the struggles because the weather. It can be some of those guys are first time there. Cole Keith, day one, had no problem. Not one single. He from day one. I mean, like he maybe like when he had when he got called up originally.
Yeah.
When he was gonna say when he got called up originally, yes. But then as the season started last year, it was just like he had no problem with it. And it was immediate change to me when he started. It was the pitch recognition and those kind of things where, yeah.
Well, I mean, I texted you today. I was, you went up to a Great Lakes Loons game.
Yes.
Sometimes you gotta, have some fun. And so I was keeping an eye on some of the minor league stuff, and I was telling you all the bad things that were happening in Erie. And I said, oh, Colt Keith, he's 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. His next at bat, home run. Next at bat,
It's funny.
game time RBI.
That lasted 30 seconds.
Yeah, you can't it's baseball's hard. He's going to struggle at times, but he's going to hit. So that's good. But we can drop down to West Michigan now, I believe. I don't know if there's anything else to cover. We talked about the pitchers a little bit.
I was going to say, so Sawyer Long in his one start did go 5 innings this week. So
You're right. Yep.
He was the
just one hit.
Yep. And like I said, his slider is what I wanted. The reason why I wanted before we moved on, his slider is looking pretty good. It's been setting up his fastball pretty well, and he's been much more efficient in his last 2 starts. But beyond that, he was in Austin Bergner too. We haven't really. I mean, he's made 2 appearances out of the bullpen this week, and he was the only other one that really didn't get. I mean, he allowed a home run, but beyond that, looked okay. He doesn't again. I think this is going to be his role. Like we saw him start last year, but because of the loss of velocity, which is still there, he's become more of a control artist.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one where, like, these days you generally only hear about guys who are throwing harder and harder as they go up through the minors, as they get better training, and add weight to their backside, if you will. But yeah, he's a guy who just lost velocity last year and actually turned into a really good starting pitcher for most of the year, and then until he got to Toledo, and then he got absolutely rocked, and so he's back in the Double-A bullpen. But no, Gibson Long, and the one hit he gave up, I think I told you, it was a deep fly ball that popped out of Mario Feliciano's glove.
And they ruled it a hit, right?
It was fair. Feliciano had to run a long way for that one, and certainly not as disastrous as the 2 he dropped in Flores' first start this week. But he's not a left fielder, man. So I feel for him. Nobody wants to be. It's like, imagine getting promoted to like a job where you absolutely have no idea what you're doing and you have to give a speech. Like, So that's basically what he's dealing with.
By the way, Noah in the chat said that he bought a Colt Keith first Bowman card before the season. That was a smart investment, my friend. I have a friend of mine who I used to work with in my other day job, and every year he'll ask me like, what prospects you should buy, and I'm like, well, what do I get out of it? Because last year or a couple of years ago, I told you to buy high on Riley Green, and you did, and you made a killing, and I didn't see a single dime out of it. He's like, well, it's you gotta, how things are, And it's like, he sounds like Pat Caputo, but he goes, you got lucky. I'm like, what do you mean I got lucky? To the next time. Anyway, story short, it's another one with high potential, very good. Very high upside. So West Michigan and Dayton, I don't know what it is about these 2 teams when they get together. Do they not like each other, Chris? This is another week. They got things looking chippy there between these 2 squads.
I don't know. It's there was definitely the Dayton manager got tossed. There were a lot of balks this week. I don't know what's going on there. I think Madison had a balk this week or today, and there were balks on Dayton earlier this week, and I don't know. I think generally speaking, you see these guys too much, and you just don't like them.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, for whatever reason, but this goes back for years now. Every time them and the Dragons, whatever the times, I don't get it. But the Whitecaps, in terms of pitching this week, we'll start with pitching because I think the pitching line looks a little better. And one pitcher that I wanted to bring up before I forget, there were two performances this week where it was not necessarily raising eyebrows, but West Michigan's bullpen. I mean, they have a lot of pitchers in their bullpen, but their bullpen pitched slightly better than what happened with Erie. In the case of really Christian Tortosa, 3 innings, 7 strikeouts, and he just looked dominant. I mean, that slider coming off the back foot, and we've been what's funny is we don't really post a lot of pitching highlights. We try to in terms of on Twitter, and we've been doing more on YouTube where people have been asking for it, and we've been able to post it. But Tortosa's slider, man, that's just a thing of beauty. It's something. It looks major league slider, and I'm going to pull it up here in a second. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about it last week, I think, where he's a guy who's been in the organization for like 8 years, and he's just now getting to high A. He's a lefty. It's kind of free and easy. I wouldn't say it's a fluid delivery, but it's a very easy, like 93, 95 from the left side. And then he has, every now and then, he'll break out a plus slider. But the command isn't always there. The stuff isn't always there, but you understand why they haven't given up on him, because this is a guy who has enough to, if something clicks, he could rocket through the system and be in the major leagues because of the raw talent is there. But it's just a matter of, it's like he doesn't seem like he's throwing very hard, but it's 93, 94, 95 every time. And and the slider, it can get him swings and misses. So that's good stuff. Yeah, and to your point, like posting one pitch can be very mismisleading, right?
Right.
Like this pitch right here, which we posted. We even put the disclaimer. We don't do this very often because it can be very misleading. But you show a pitch like that, it looks like it takes a right turn and goes and looks like a plus slider. He can't throw that every time, but if it gets there more often, then yeah.
I mean, look at the action on this, like just whoosh, it disappeared.
Yeah, so they got him in the bullpen. He's been pitching well. Eric Pinales has been pitching fairly well. He's another guy who throws pretty hard. We talked about Tyler Madison. He's a guy who he gave up a couple runs today, including a home run. But he's a guy who probably has the talent to be a AA before too long. He was former 4th-round pick. Really, some pretty good stuff. At least the fastball and changeup are pretty nice.
Tyler Montero had a really good week.
Kyler Montero had his start. He was another one who pitched 4 innings in like 45 pitches. He gave up 1 hit, I think, but then struck out 7 strikeouts. Now Zach Hess did not pitch terribly well, and he had to leave the game in the middle of an outing. So you don't like to see that for a guy who's and it wasn't like he was because he was pitching poorly. It was like, hey, something's wrong. And you don't like to see that from a guy who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So hopefully everything's okay there, but I guess we'll find out soon. But yeah, Wilkel Hernandez, he didn't pitch terribly well today. We even, I think I wrote him up from our live look from opening day. He was the opening day starter. And it's I don't know, so far this year he's not impressing me. Back in the day he was throwing kind of hard. Now it's just low 90s and there's not much in terms of secondary stuff. So he got hit pretty hard today. Gabe Sequeira's still there. Trying to think.
Carlos Pena had another good week. It's Stan. I was just say if we could put like a certain profiles next to our YouTube chat people, I think Stan would have Carlos Pena right next to him.
So we put up Carlos Pena's his start in Lansing. It's up.
Yes,
the video of that is up. And the interesting thing about him is he's like just one of those wily pitchers. If you watch him, you will see quick pitches, you'll see hesitation pitches, you'll see him drop his arm angle, you'll see him do all sorts of stuff to mess up hitter timing. And he's got a slow curveball. He'll throw a curveball a little higher. He's got a changeup, and then the fastball. I don't think any of his pitches are particularly strong on their own, but he's just a dude who knows how to pitch. And yeah, it's nice to see him work against these high A hitters. I think he may run into some trouble at AA and higher levels. But for now, he's exactly what this team needs. Is kind of just a guy that you can. He's like the Chance Kirby for the Erie last year. Pena just goes out there and he's going to get you out. So,
Yeah, and you're talking about that. You're talking about the different angles. It kind of reminds me a lot of what Cuban pitchers do.
Exactly.
In the 80s and 90s, a lot of the Cuban pitchers like El Duque would change their arm angle, kind of give you a different look. And for his size, you go out there when you, like I said, when I saw him in Lakeland last year, I thought it was a kid. I kid you not, because when you see him from a distance, you're like, what is this, 17-year-old or something? But realize how old he is. But no, I think that for him, it's location, and taking, like, when he has his location going, his stuff really plays up pretty well. And here's, for example, right here, he looks like he's facing a giant. Just like,
yeah, I think that is Susak. I think that's Daniel Susak, their first overall pick. Not first overall pick, but their
he got him
first
to
round
roll
pick
over
last year.
there. He got him to roll over there pretty easily too. So this is an example of when you can spot that fastball in the inside corner, the looping curveball that didn't look like they didn't do much, but
he stays away from guys and then he'll pound them inside with a fastball and make it look faster. It's kind of like I said, he knows how to pitch. It's the like effective velocity. Like slow away makes it seem even slower, and fast in makes it seem even faster. And but yeah, like I said, I think this can get him only so far.
yeah.
I don't know if this is gonna work in Double-A. We'll see, but it's perfect for what the Whitecaps are doing right now. He picked off Max Muncy.
That was a nice play.
They tagged him out before the run scored, so that was a good point there. But yeah, you'll see him. It's just a slow curveball that he'll drop in to steal strikes, and you'll see later in the game where he'll start messing with the timing a little bit more. So he's a smart. There you go, quick pitch right there.
Yeah.
Didn't work, but he'll do it. So yeah, he's a nice addition. Yep, messing with the time. So yeah, so he's a fun dude to watch, and it's definitely something that helps a team that's trying to win games.
Yeah, especially early on when Erie's West Michigan's still trying to figure out the rotation. So in for what Brian Pena, to me, what Brian Pena is trying to do right now too is to see what he had, like, in terms of organization. But Pena, this is the time of year that he's going to have the most amount of pitchers he's going to have before they start going up to Erie. So for him to see what he has in Pena and guys like him and Winkill Hernandez, but Montero, something like you were showing me his spin rate last week was like 3,000 or something like that, something ridiculous.
Yeah, he topped 3,000 on one of his breaking balls a couple times, like a breaking ball around 81, 82 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, this is Sir Dusty, by the way. This is a guy who was blown away by our appearance. Well, good to see you in here, Sir Dusty. Yeah,
Thanks,
no,
yeah.
it's
it's one of the we try to do to explain some, but sometimes if we're watching a guy pitch, it's hard to tell you everything that's going on there. So we apologize to our audio listeners. You can always check out the pod on YouTube later.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
and yeah, Garrett Burhan is kind of just there. He didn't look terribly good when I saw him in Lansing, but that Lansing gets a lot of pitchers. We saw that last year. Flores and Madden got blown up in Lansing while we were there. So Burhan will be a guy to follow as the year goes along because he's got a solid arm. It's 91, 95, pretty good changeup. So Blood Right is paying again.
yeah. Oh, Blood Right, dude. Hold on. Which one did you want? Hold on. No, I got to play them both actually.
Exquisite. That ball is gone. Such a all-time.
Thank you, Blood Right, for the $5 in the super chat. We appreciate that. No, but in terms of, let's get to the hitters too, because the hitting, there's Danny Soretti is on is it an 11-game hitting streak? Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah. No, he's another dude who just seems to hit. I wouldn't put him in Colt Keith's category. I do wonder. I often talk about his batting stance as like an Ed Grimley stance, which is a very strange reference to an old Martin Short character from the 80s. But it's just a weird, funky, like he's got his arms above his head, and like he's almost like he's sticking his belt out. But he gets the bat into the zone on time from both sides of the plate, and he's a guy who just finds the grass. And he hit a home run to deep, like, left center in Lansing for me. Wasn't a whole lot of power production in West Michigan this week for for the Whitecaps. But yeah, he's just a lot of line drive, some Soretti, and he's also gives you a really good plate appearance overall. He's very patient. We talked about it last year. When he was up in Double A in the playoffs and didn't seem the least bit bothered. Like he wasn't lunging at pitches. I've referenced it many times. They were having a perfect game thrown against them by Somerset, and he worked like a 12 pitch walk in the 7th inning. It was like, all right, dude, that's pretty impressive. So yeah, he's a guy that I think he wouldn't shock me if he's the first or second guy from West Michigan to go up to Erie if and when that they start making some moves, because I don't know what his overall numbers are. I think he's hitting over 300.
Yeah, he's hitting over 300. Yeah.
But yeah, last week 6 for 15, 3 doubles, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and a steal. Like we've compared him to Andre Lipsius a few times too, right? Where it's
He's a gamer.
He's a gamer who he just knows how to get on base. And yeah, there's the home run.
Yeah.
That was I don't think I think I was actually.
You're in the middle. I think you're in the middle of doing something else.
I was either getting a different video or I was on the broadcast with Dan.
Oh, this is what. Yeah. You were on the broadcast. That's right.
383 says Alex.
Yeah.
Which is yeah. I mean, it's another guy who's probably, again, we don't know exactly how Scott Harris is going to do things with minor league promotions, or if he even cares at all, if he's just going to leave it up to Garco. But it does feel like maybe there's a little bit more of a prove it now. Like, just keep proving it and show us that you belong, and then we'll move you up. But we'll see. 341, he said. Okay. That's still pretty good. That'll do. So, yeah, Soretti had a strong week. I'm trying to think. Chris Myers, the Toledo Rocket, hit 2 home runs. He hit 2 of the 3 home runs this week. 5 for 11 with a double, 2 home runs, 2 walks. Pretty good week. He didn't play every day, but it's nice to have that guy on your team. And then you, on Friday night, were the man getting all the videos while I was out doing random stuff. And you got Jace Young's bomb.
I forgot to pull up the comp for Danny Sorotti's swing.
Yeah, there's Ed Grimley. I don't know. I don't know what it is about the hand to the forehead. You know what I mean? Do you see it?
Yeah, I can't see it.
So that yeah.
No one knows. If anybody knows who Ed Grimley is in here, God bless you, because if you're watching on YouTube, yeah, all right, that's a good comp. All right, enough. Sorry, go ahead as you were.
No, so we mentioned Chris Myers with the 2 home runs. Jace Young was the one I was talking about. He hit. Yeah. We've been waiting to see some more power from Jace Young. He didn't have a great week overall. So 4 for 21, 2 doubles, a homer, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts. So hitting 190. Strikeouts. Those strikeouts all came today. I think he went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, which was a bummer. But yeah, the power is what we want to see, and he put it on display. That's the first time I've ever seen him really put a charge into a ball, at least in a game. So it had to be 400 plus feet, right? It was to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm pulling up right now as we speak, and he got a little bit of. Dan was talking about this, he got a little bit of a win with this, but still, what's funny about the call was Dan was waiting on this call for a while.
Center field. Let's see if the wind can take this.
Yeah, it took the win a little bit there.
Center. It's over and gone.
Yeah, basically right over the 402 mark, but yeah. Who knows how far behind, but. Yeah, that's what we want to see. Now, one of his doubles was kind of just a ground ball down the line.
Yeah, the Dan was using the call Forever Young. He was
been waiting for this.
Yeah, Nathan, and rightfully so, Nathan Wangler called them out on it. He's like, "You've been sitting on that for a while," and so
yeah. But now the question is it like Rod Stewart Forever Young, or is it Alphaville Forever Young?
Nah, that's a good question. I think it's more of the Alphaville version. Versus, or that particular one versus
of course, this
Forever Young. I don't like the Rod Stewart version. That version sucks.
Man, just Rod Stewart, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, get out of here, Rod Stewart.
Oh, I can kick a soccer ball in the crowd. Ooh, big deal.
So yeah, I mean that was good to see. Now you mentioned Campos. He didn't have a great week, but again, he's still feeling things and managing the swings and misses pretty well. Still. Just learning how to hit. 19 years old. I'm not worried. I'm still impressed that he's there at all, and he looks pretty comfortable. Isaac Pacheco had a terrible week. And to the point where I went and did a deep dive in his stats, and I think he can't see the ball. It was in West Michigan or something like that because we've talked about it before. 5 of his 6 home runs have come in Lansing. There's Young right there, right?
Yeah, another double. Yeah, that
Yeah.
ball's smoked. That ball is smoked.
Yeah. But Pacheco, let me look at the stats here. Pacheco this week, 3 for 24 with 12 strikeouts and 0 walks. And when you watch him, he was just like swinging at the ball out of the pitcher's hand. Like he couldn't pick up spin, he couldn't pick up off-speed stuff at all. And his stats on the road in the Midwest League are much, much better than they are at home. So I don't know. I mean, that's not great, but I don't know if there's something about the wall out there that he can't see. But yeah, so that's unfortunate because he looked like a future All-Star in Lansing, and this week he looked like he didn't belong in High A. And sometimes
by the way,
it happens with prospects, but
it could be this case too, where superstition. If you believe in superstitions, he did change his number from 34 to 21. So that was something that Hasty mentioned in the broadcast. And so if you're into those kind of things, like I don't know about you, but from growing up, I had 2 numbers. I had number 4 and number 8. 4 was my first number in baseball, and then I carried that over in the basketball. So he thought maybe 21 could bring him better luck. I don't know, but it is interesting. It is fascinating, the home and road splits, and I'm not sure where West Michigan's playing at this week, but
they're going to Peoria, I think, and
also
then
they're taking on.
Beloit.
Okay.
Or Cedar Rapids in Beloit. I don't know. It's they're on the road for the next 12 games, so we'll see what happens. Sir Dusty, yes, we have. Sir Dusty asked if we noticed that the Lugnuts troll Austin Murr by putting up a picture of the guy from Impractical Jokers, and I didn't know that because I've never watched Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
But somebody pointed out to me last year, maybe even 2 years ago, because Murr he's been in West Michigan for a couple of years now. But yeah, I don't know if that's Jesse and the guys having some fun with him, but they like to have a good time up there. I think I sent pictures. I don't know if I put them out here, but when Dan Hasty he did that call, like the Masters, Jesse printed something out with the Masters logo and put it on a tradition like any other, or unlike any other, and put Dan Hasty announced for the Whitecaps. So they have fun up there. But and who was Stan said he thought Pacheco was trying to hit a home run every at bat. It's possible, but that's not. That's never been his approach to me when I've seen him play before. Where he's a guy who generally stays in the zone and will work at bats. And this week it was just swing, 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 swing. So maybe he did get homer happy there in Lansing, but I don't know. Maybe it's just one of those weeks where he was having trouble seeing the ball, or he was just struggling. So, well, hopefully he'll pick things up. I don't know if there was anybody else. Ben Malgeri kind of came back down to earth this week, 1 for 18 with 2 walks. Yeah, I don't know. We had Steele Walker doing a rehab assignment. Maybe that's who you're thinking of
that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, Steele Walker, I think, is going to head up to Toledo after this, but we'll see.
Speaking of rehab assignments, we head down to Lakeland, and Dylan Dingler is on the back and swinging the bat a little bit, and that was good to see because he had a torn meniscus. I believe it was torn meniscus in his knee.
Yeah.
And so he DH'd. He DH'd a couple games. I think he DH'd a couple games, but it was basically between him and Rottenberg, who do pretty well. Yeah, no, we'll get to the Dylan homer here in a second, but overall, again, it was also the appearance of Jose de la Cruz back in the Lakeland.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, so
I didn't see him at all this week.
Yeah, Jose de la Cruz was back. He went he went 4 for 4.
I don't think so.
Sure?
Yeah, I didn't see him. Are you looking at the season stats or?
No, I'm looking at
game logs?
this week's. Yeah, I'm gonna look at game logs. Yeah.
Huh. Weird. I did not see him at all today.
Oh no, you know what? No, I am an idiot. No, I looked at the wrong thing. Sorry, you're right. I did look at the wrong thing. I am terribly sorry.
Good. No, it's all good. Like I was just like, oh man, because so here's the thing. Couple weeks a year, we get to see Lakeland play on MILB TV when they go to St. Lucie and when they go to Bradenton. And this week they were in St. Lucie, so I was paying particularly close attention to those games, and they were all awful. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's low A baseball. I shouldn't have expected more, but there were like 2 hard hit balls by Lakeland the entire time, and one of them was that Dingler homer. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, Dingler doesn't belong here. I think there must have been 20 hit batters over the course of the week. There's certain guys I'm keeping an eye on. I want to see Christian Santana. I want to see Peyton Graham. First of all, we got to get these guys helmets that fit, because every time Christian Santana or every time Peyton Graham swung, there's the Dingler home run. He crushed that. It was 421 feet, something like that.
Yeah, forget about it.
But every time Peyton Graham swung, his helmet fell off. It was like an Akil Baddoo running a third thing. But every time he swung, it was annoying. Christian Santana, 0 for 16 this week. He looks like he does not belong in low A, and it's a bummer. But yeah, watching him this week, you'd have no idea he's any kind of prospect unless somebody had told you. He's swinging wildly, popping up everything he makes contact with, and it just looked bad. And he's now like 3 for 45 on the year, which is certainly not what any of us wanted to see, because he was I think we have him as our 4th or 5th best prospect in the system. But
yeah,
right now it's not there for him. And if the complex leagues were going, he probably would get sent down right now, just because he's struggling so much. But I don't know. We'll see. And then the rest of the roster, you got like Andrew Jenkins, who was their 9th round pick, I want to say, out of Georgia Tech. He was okay. Luke Gold had a couple decent games. It's just, here we've got the Santana. I put together every Santana at bat. So what you're going to see is a lot of nothing.
He looks off balance too. If you look at his front foot too, his actions, it doesn't seem like he's swinging. His swing is just off. It just seems off. Like that right there. That swing is just a prime example of that.
No, I mean, and that's how he looked all week. He had Thursday and Saturday off, and still looked rough. That was the best contact he made all week, right there. This could have been a sac fly, but for the most part, yeah, just pulling off everything, swinging through breaking balls, swinging through fastballs.
Yeah, no, and Problematic BG in chat said it correctly. It's not on time at all, and whether it's just a issue of timing, but it's even though right there, like it just easily just topples over on every single pitch. Wow, that's a stretch. Oh man, no. Anyway, sorry,
but yeah, and so, but like the concerning thing to me still is he's just hitting something about his swing. It's too uphill. He's hitting everything up in the air, and he's got like a 60% infield fly rate this year. Like it's just absurd. He's under everything. So, obviously we're not giving up on him or anything like that, but it's just like, boy, this was a rough week for him. But like I said, it wasn't terribly good for anybody in Lakeland, even though they managed to win, I think, 4 of the 6 games. There were a lot of walks, a lot of, like I said, hit by pitches. Lazaro Benitez was hitting the ball really hard. He was kind of a guy that they couldn't get out for a little bit. And Luke Gold had kind of his first good week as a pro, although it was just 4 singles, 4 for 11. But he was their 5th round pick last year. You'd hope a little bit more from him. Manny Sakara. What's that?
I would say his stride. I don't know. Just something about his stride just looks off to me. I don't know. I could be wrong, but it seems at least he has a good eye and still maintaining that.
He worked that one walk, but yeah. So yeah, Manny Sakara didn't do a whole lot. Seth Stevenson and Dom Johnson were kind of, when they got on base, they were trouble for opposing pitchers, but it was ugly baseball and not a ton of fun to watch. But on the flip side, there were some solid pitching performances. Again, it's not the most well-known pitching staff. We got to see Troy Melton for the first time really pitch in pro ball, and he's an interesting guy because he was their 4th round pick last year, and he's got a big arm. He's throwing 95, 96, up to 98 for 4 innings in this outing. And every now and then he'll snap off a decent curveball. But and you're seeing Melton now, and he almost looks like a jumbo Jackson Jobe, his frame, for some reason.
Even from his hair too, like from behind looks like Jackson Jobe. But anyway,
he's 6'4", and yeah, he looks pretty raw probably far too raw for a guy who was in college as long as he was. But that's why he was in the 4th round. And you just hope that this is the sort of guy that you can do something with, that the player development system can figure out, because it is pretty rare arm strength for a pitcher. So, and he, like I said, he figured out the curveball later in the game, got some decent swings and misses with it, but he's beaten up on 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids.
Just
So
blown by the
hopefully,
fastball by him.
yeah, and it's another fastball that it doesn't necessarily look like it, but he'll throw some with that 20 plus inches of induced vertical break, which is borderline elite. So he can do that, but he tends right now to work downhill, it looks like. So there's some, like I said, he's kind of like a big old lump of clay that you hope you can get something out of later.
I noticed, you what I noticed here too, they put the lines out there between the shortstop and second base to do the dividing line, so they don't have the whatchamacallit.
Yeah, they call that the pie slice.
Yeah, interesting name for that, but yeah. So,
yeah. And that actually came into play a couple times in the series. There were a couple like soft liners that would have otherwise been caught, but you're not allowed to go in between those in the pie slice. So that's like another attempt to kind of limit the effect of the shift, or a pseudo shift. There it is right there.
yeah,
that would have been pie slice. But
I wonder they're going to come up with a stat called pie slice hits.
Pie slice. But and then so we also got Marco Jimenez had a decent outing. Carlos Marcano had a couple that were okay, and then we put up Ulysses Campos just because he was a guy who got absolutely bombed in his last start, and he pitched well. He was another dude who threw 40 pitches in 4 innings. He's kind of interesting looking pitcher. He's all thighs and backside. He's like 5'10" and probably 200 pounds now. He might be listed at like 140, but he's a little thick guy now. But he's got a good arm, and it's a sinker slider mix that works pretty well. As we said, he got bombed last week, but I think he might have a future as a reliever down the road. And here's Ulysses Campos, and it's fun just to know somebody named Ulysses.
Yeah,
if
you're in the Greek history
build.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and also if you're in a Greek history, that is cool. That's a nice pitch right there. And I was looking forward to seeing this because there's not much out there in terms of video for Campos even beforehand. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these Lakeland pitchers, this is the first time. A lot of times when the Tigers sign someone, I always try to I'll search the world for video and then try to post it on Twitter to see what so people have an idea. But this year, when we go down to Lakeland, if and when we go to Lakeland and all that, I'm going to get as much video as possible for this, because guys like Campos are players who, you could probably see in a bullpen maybe sometime soon, either West Michigan or what have you. But yeah, I like Campos's makeup. I think there's definitely a seventh inning guy for sure.
Yeah, it's just interesting. There, and I'll get Marco Jimenez up tomorrow maybe, but there's some good arms down there in Lakeland. It's just there's more to it than just throwing hard. And Campos, I do feel like has a little bit a feel for pitching, which helps. But I think he's 20, 21, but he's just he looks like he's been doing squats.
The power thrusts.
He has big old thick backside, which is of course what I love. It's my number one feature in a starting pitcher. But and then you had some of the Max Alba pitched, Cole Patton pitched.
Trevin Michael has no business being in.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, he pitched just 2 innings this week. I'm looking. Who was? Garrett Apker. Quinn Goditis. Goditis still has a good slider, but not much else. So
Cam Brown.
Yeah, it was fun to get a look at those guys. Sometimes I like it when there's a little bit of more of a gap, but I think we're going to get them again. I have to look at the schedule, but I think they play at Bradenton in like 2 weeks.
Nice.
So we're going to see them all again. Hopefully by that point, Santana has some things figured out, and Graham can give us a better showing but like I said, sometimes, like we went to Erie for opening week, we'll probably go back in June, just a couple months later to see how things are progressing, and maybe go back again in August or September. So we just like to spread them out so you get a good feel for how these guys have changed over the course of the season.
Yeah, Connor Holton made his appearance too.
Oh yeah, the Connor Holden.
Yeah,
I think he's was he another Yeah, I think he was a free agent signing,
Yeah,
undrafted free agent signing. But yeah, he was one who showed up in the transactions not that long ago. Big
yeah,
body.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like I was kind of that was one of those names where it kind of came up, and
Yeah.
he's a little older. He's 24 years old, so he's definitely going to be one of those names that if he does well, he won't like just Travis Michael. At some point, you're going to see him in West Michigan in the next couple of months because they have no business being there.
Yeah, and he's a Wichita State kid, so it's like one of those like, hey, we got some connections there, and this is the guy we think
the Chad connection, David Chad connection.
Now, I mean that's the recap for the week. Lakeland went 4-2, West Michigan 3-3, Erie 2-4, and Toledo 5-1. So as you said, they're all, with the exception of Erie, they're all above 500, which is nice to see. We did get a couple questions. They were kind of questions that we've sort of gone over, but we might as well bring them up, right?
Right, of course.
So Chris Lavalley said, should it be time to call up Malloy, and after this week, Colt Keith should be sent up to AAA? Once again, like this is the thing we get so often that we want to make a shirt out of it. To call him up, call him up, call him up.
Yeah, we're looking for a good design. I put up the design for call him up, and I got nobody buying one. So either the design sucks, or if you can tell me the design sucks, that's fine. I'll
It's kind of a niche thing, right? Like I don't know how many people are saying it for real and how many people are saying it tongue in cheek now. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, like so Mitchell mentions the service time, and there is that aspect. We don't like the idea of the Tigers manipulating service time, but as an organization, it's the smart thing to do. Now, Malloy has already passed. Like, you could bring him up now, and it wouldn't affect. Like, he wouldn't get a full year of service time, I don't think. But, and I don't even know, does Super 2 still exist? If Super 2 exists anymore, then that's the issue there. But, I'm sure that they want Malloy to continue working on his defense. But beyond that, I think they're not ready to give up. Because to bring him up, you've got to remove somebody from the 40-man. And as much as fans, fans just want things to happen right now, right? And I think that within the baseball organization, they just view things, they take a much longer view of things. It's kind of pretending like you're at your own job and you have a couple bad days. Well, like fans would say, all right, fire him. And it's like, the organization knows more. That's what's going on. They know what Tyler Nevin's doing. They know what he's working on. They know what he's, how hard he's working. Things like this. We just see the tip of what has happened. We see the results on the field or the lack of results in the field, and we want retribution. We want blood, or we want somebody better. And that's totally understandable. But I think from the organization's point of view, that there's more to it. They're like, are we really ready to give up on this guy? Do we want to give up on Jonathan Scope? Just give up on him. And do we want to DFA Tyler Nevin? Do we want to give up on Zach Short? Like, these are decisions that seem pretty easy from us because we're fans. We play fantasy baseball, and it's like, whatever. But, when you're dealing with people, I think there's more to it. And there might be a handful of people in the organization who really believe in Tyler Nevin and think like, hey, he's just about to turn the corner. Let's not give up on him yet. But that said, he hasn't produced, and it's the big leagues. And this is a production game. So if they wanted to call up Malloy, I don't think anybody would complain, right? It's just sometimes you don't know what the organization is thinking.
Especially I think after today, and we saw this in Discord, our Tigers Discord, a lot of fans were just over it today. Erod goes out there, pitches a perfect game into the 7th inning, just looked brilliant. And he's looked brilliant in his last couple starts. And then but in the back of your mind, full well the Tigers weren't going to able to do anything offensively, and they didn't. And it was almost like it was, as soon as Baltimore scored them, automatically in the back of my mind going, they're going to win this game because the Tigers cannot get anything going. And I know there's a Spencer Torkelson had a ball to right. It was a decent catch there, but runners in scoring position this week was like 2 for 21 or something, just some ridiculously bad number. But that being said, it's just the thing is that when you have so Malloy comes up and he maybe goes 0 for 18, then what happens is at that point then you go, send him back down. It's just it's a vicious cycle, and I just think that look, I'm just as impatient as everybody else is when it comes to these things, but also I have to kind of look at it as through their point of view. Is just like, okay, is Malloy just mashing Columbus, the Clippers pitching, or is he going to mash the Brewers?
And, and absolutely, and they have far better information than we have. They have all the Hawkeye data down there, so they know exactly how he's pitching or how he's hitting against what kind of pitches in what zones, and they may know, much better. They do know much better than all of us, like what he might still need to work on.
Right.
So it's just one of those things where fans see the numbers, and I also think we as fans, it's always hard for us to accept how much luck is involved in baseball. Like you said, the numbers with runners in scoring position, you think it would average out. Sometimes it doesn't. We saw, I think Jonathan Scope hit 3 balls hard today, and they were all at people.
Yeah.
It's super annoying, but everyone just kind of assumes that they're bad because they can't score, and it might just be that they are not great and also unlucky.
So we did get a question in YouTube chat. Is there more risk of drafting a high school arm or a bat arm? To me, all day. It's like right now, Jackson Jove is a prime example of that. But
well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's is he asking, is it more risky to draft a high schooler than a college player,
okay.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, it's hey, jump shot, Jordan, thank you. If you want to clarify what you meant, if you just meant, yep, okay, okay, that's Sergio, that's not him. In any event, yeah, you want to play the clip for him, Ron?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, Jordan, this is for you.
Exquisite.
That ball is gone. Such a all-time.
All right.
Yeah, so high school arms are the riskiest demographic of all in the draft, which is, again, comes to the whole Jackson Jobe thing that people are all upset about. There are some other positions that haven't worked out great, that don't get taken, like high school catchers don't work out all that often when you take them up high, but then some people throw that off, like Joe Mauer, because he was a high school catcher and ended up being, pretty awesome. But yeah, you're at the point now where there are organizations that will simply not draft a high school arm in the first round. They don't care how good he looks, how amazing the analytics are. They just won't do it because the attrition rate is so high. And I think something like 40% of first-round high school pitchers never make the majors, and then even smaller number actually do anything good. Now you can end up with some amazing pitchers, but it's kind of just a crapshoot, right? Like Clayton Kershaw was a high school pitcher who supposedly the Tigers wanted, but Andrew Miller fell to them, so they took him instead. You took the lefty from college, who was obviously going to be the more polished and ready and better pitcher, right? No, it didn't work out that way. But Cole Hamels, Zach Greinke was a high schooler, but generally speaking, you're going to be better off drafting a college arm. You can find tons of instances where that doesn't help either, though. Casey Mize, Asa Lacy hasn't worked out for the Royals. So.
I mean, during that period of time when the Tigers were drafting college arms, you got to keep in mind that Dabrowski really was the more they were ready, the more you could use them from trade pieces. I mean, that's exactly what he did. I mean, case in point, I think of Andrew Miller, for example. There's Jake Thompson. Was it Jake Thompson? Yeah. It was part of the trade.
He was a high schooler, yeah, but
no, I thought it was drafted out of Louisville.
Oh no, that's there was. Jake Thompson was the high schooler from Texas, I think, unless I'm thinking of. There was Jeff Thompson.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Same year as Chad Green. They took Jeff Thompson long before Chad Green. Traded Chad Green. Didn't think anything of Chad Green. Just kind of a middling starter.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like Dabrowski had a reputation for doing that. He would pick the college arms most ready to go. The classic SEC big, the big lefty, big righty out of. Insert LSU, you can insert any of those colleges in there. And now in terms of even from a high school standpoint, I think if you're better off getting maybe a project arm in the later rounds versus, or like, for example, I think it was third baseman, college third baseman have the highest amount of, in terms of succeeding as draft pick, right?
When I did a research, I haven't updated it in a couple of years, but I took a look at, every profile, and it was college third basemen had the highest production and the quickest, and they were just the best overall. And you had guys like Evan Longoria, Ryan Zimmerman. I'm trying to think. There are a whole bunch of other like just basically the first college third baseman that goes off the board is generally good. And so that was when I was like, hey, these numbers suggest taking Alec Boehm instead of Casey Mize. Now Alec Boehm hasn't worked out great, but he's been a decent player. So you never can tell, man. And yeah, in general, like we've talked about this before. I view drafting pitchers almost like drafting running backs in football. Like take them later and turn them into something. Don't waste the early round capital because it's hard to find hitters, and sometimes they're just you look at guys and go, that guy can hit, and just take the guy who can hit and figure out where they can play on defense, and then get some arms later. But scouting is hard, and you don't want to miss out on that Justin Verlander, right? Because you don't take any pitchers.
Well, to a certain extent, I mean, if you look at the Tigers in the last couple of years, you look at what they've been able to do in terms of from a perspective of, in terms of like just in some of the cases they've been developing arms later in the draft. I mean, you look at Tarek Skubal as a prime example of that, but also I think it's because to a certain extent, some of the scouts or whomever was like, look, this is what they had to like. They took risks later in the draft. If and I think if based off who's in there now, I think it's gonna be a completely different look. I don't even like in terms of like who they're gonna go after. Like Mark Connor has a certain like reputation for going after high school players.
Yeah, well, in San Diego, but we don't know how much of that was the GM
Right.
and how much that was the draft the scouting director, but. Yeah, it'll be this draft will be really fascinating. They got 3 of the top 50 picks, including the number 3 overall pick. They're going to get a good player at the number 3 pick, probably a top 50 prospect in baseball right off the bat, because Skeens, Langford, and Cruz, it's going to be probably one of them, and those guys are all really good. So that's going to help, but it's really about those next 2 picks, what they do with those. And a couple of years ago, we thought they did pretty well with their first handful of picks.
So we had a request from Bruce Jane, who had a weekly transaction report from the Flying Tigers for the Mud Hens in terms of trades, call-up, signups, and waivers and retired. I'll tell you this right now. In Toledo, Chaz Fernander was called up to Toledo today. Yep. So because Will Vest went up with the Tigers, so that I can tell you right now. Tyler Holton, like we mentioned earlier in the week, is up with the team now. So as far as Erie goes, if we're going to go through Erie really quick, they activated Dario Gardeta off the injured list. They sent back Will Monero back to West Michigan. He didn't really, and then Steele Walker is the one that's on a rehab assignment from Erie to West Michigan. So you're curious about that. As far as it goes from West Michigan goes, the transaction wise kind of looks like this. Real quick, just mentioned for Fernander. That's really about it in terms of that. Lakeland's not going to see much because Complex League hasn't started yet, so it tends to be a little like rehab assignment. Like we did see Dylan Dingler. Oh, and Patrick
Pridgeon. Yeah, they added him, but then I put him on the 60 AIL. So I don't. Nothing groundbreaking. We usually tweet out transactions when we get them. One of these days, maybe we'll share a story about how that almost went wrong. But maybe when we have our guest. We could probably do a quick article every Monday about the player movement from the week before. That shouldn't be too hard, right?
Yeah, we do it. Then we should add it to the recap. So, but yeah, and it was like I said. Getting back before we finish the podcast, I was thinking that. I give examples of like Garrett Hill and Bo Brisky of pitchers who develop later on in the later rounds, and it could be the case here with the likes of some of like I'm not saying necessarily Chaz Fernander as an example, but just arms where you mentioned it the correct way, Chris. Like running backs, you just put them out there, see what happens, work them up, and we had a scout. I remember that scout that was telling us that like the Tigers were very gun shy for whatever reason when they had all these relievers and just to bring them up. And, and I think that's changing a little bit because you see guys down in high doing great numbers and then they would never do anything with him. They just kind of run it off. So yeah, Brandon White's a prime example of that too. Brandon White, thank you, Sergio. That's an example of that.
You know what's funny, and
Jason Foley was undrafted.
Yeah, I randomly stumbled across a tweet that I had from the third day of the draft. It's from June 5th, 2019, and it was me pointing out that how many. So it's day 3 of the draft. Roughly 45 of these players are going to make the major leagues. And I was like, a couple, maybe like 2 will be all-stars. I had all the numbers. I got to find the tweet again. And the funny thing was that it was from 2019, and the Tigers have already had 3 players, I think, from day 3 of the draft in 2019 come up, and they might have a 4th. And so it was like, what do you know? Like the one, like I was trying to just point out how none of these players make it, and it's like the best year ever for Tigers late round picks. So tough break.
Look, and the bottom line is the Tigers have done a better job of developing pitching as of recently, and that's something that I think is worth mentioning because this is an organization that has struggled to do that before in the past, and they're able now to at least get something out of some of the arms they have in their system. And so I think if we look at even like right now, just kind of ignore the numbers right now early on in the season with Toledo and Reese Olson, for example. Olson, you look at Olson's numbers and you're like, oh man, look at just the box score. That sucks. But then I can tell you right now that if you look at some of his average velocity on his fastball right now is sitting at 95. Okay, that's great. What does that mean? Okay, cool. But then you look at his slider numbers, his slider's like over 3,000 in terms of spin rate and just his command. It's the simple message is this: his command. He needs to work on his command. That's all. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you look at you can sit there and say, well, the swing and miss stuff is there. Yeah, and some of the appearances he's had, like 13 or 14 swings and misses. But the problem is that now you have to figure out is he going to be a starter or is he going to be a reliever at this point? But the numbers indicate that there's something to that. So, but again, it's early in the season. So when do you start kind of, pushing the panic button, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about command is it can be tough to develop if you don't, sometimes you just don't have the mechanics to develop the command you need. But somebody asked a question here. They said, do you guys think, as Alex said, do you guys think Faeda will ever be anything in the big leagues? Now, just I don't know about that. I've always, in the recent years, I had always thought he would be a solid, Alex Wilson style slider heavy reliever. Then he came up and pitched okay as a starter, and then things fell apart. But the one thing to point out, we didn't mention this in Toledo, Faeda was supposed to pitch in one of the games, one of the doubleheaders.
Saturday, second game of the doubleheader Saturday.
He didn't pitch at all this week. He never threw a pitch this week, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if that was they're holding him back just in case they need him in the big leagues. Maybe something's barking, but he hasn't been placed on the IL, so he just was not pitching this week. So I don't know. Keep an eye on that next week to see what happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, he was scheduled. There was one lineup, I think, that had him out there, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, poof, he was gone. So Tigers are heading to Milwaukee this week. And it could be a number of things, but I think Faedo showed last year. He had I think it was like 6 games where he looked really good. He allowed 1 run or less, which was like he was able to command his fastball, his slider. But I think with his new reworked mechanics a little bit, going back to his college days where he is able to kind of generate that kind of go back to what he's more familiar with. Yeah, I think there's something to his arm. I mean, I was really kind of pessimistic about it, but I think the more I think about what he's doing in Toledo, he has the ability to have some good swing and miss stuff. But I think I'm still thinking reliever. I mean, people were like, well, what about him being a starter? For now, I think if you can get a reliever like that who has that good slider, who has a good 1-2 pitch mix right there to get you outs in that bridge the gap, I think Faedo would be it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing now is basically he has to start because they need starters in the minors. They need somebody but I do think the best thing for him probably would be to just focus on that slider and really, become a slider monster. But, I don't know. We'll probably see him start some games this year. We'll probably see him relieve some games this year in the big leagues.
Yeah. And it's good. I mean, like, to me at this point, if he can just come up and do a couple things like he did last year, then that works for me. I mean, I think that right now, I know because he's the first round draft pick, that the kind of like the connotation that comes with that, the money, what have you. But I think at this point, I'd take anything just as for that. I think Tiger fans would too. So as far as just getting production out of him, but at any rate, thank you so much for watching us this week. We really appreciate if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on the audio format, of course, go to tigerminorreport.com or tigersmlreport.com and click on, I mean, if you actually, never mind, forget I said that. Just go to our YouTube page. It's under podcast episodes, and I'll make sure to link that. So it's been a long week. I did go see the Loons and the South Bend Cubs. My friend Jamie has sweet tickets, so it was nice. It was cold, like it's been all year, but it was I don't know, like it was just nice to see a different system because palate cleanser, if you will. Because
I mean, I was joking about we went to a couple games up there a couple years ago, one for the Whitecaps, and I was joking with the guys in the one of our chat threads about. We went up there. We saw Dylan Dingler hit a home run. I think we saw Winsel Perez hit a home run. We saw Torkelson do some things. And this old guy, from Midland, was telling me about his favorite player on the team, and I was just trying to be nice to him because this guy he's talking about, he's a 7th round pick out of one of those small colleges in California. He's 23 years old, playing against a bunch of teenagers in A-ball, and I was like, oh, you never know, he might make the majors, and I didn't mean it at all. And the guy he was talking about was James Outman, who is hitting .315 with 7-8 home runs for the Dodgers this year. Looks like the early favorite for the National League Rookie of the Year.
Wait a minute, was it that time where we were out there and those guys were behind us that were talking to us?
Yeah, they were old guys, and they were The guy told me, he's like, hey, this is the guy I like. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's right.
Like, good for you. I'm sure you'll be excited when it's one of those things where you just know most later round college guys aren't going to work out, and yet the Dodgers. So there you go, James Outman.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for the kind compliments, and again, thank you for the super chat money. We appreciate it. It's exquisite. You know what? Jump shot, Jordan. You deserve it one more time.
Thank you.
Exquisite.
Thanks, Blood Right. Thanks everybody listening.
Thank you again. Yeah, and thank you for the new Patreon folks as well. So if you want to be part of the Patreon tribe, there's a YouTube channel that says that, and I always like, it sounds so stupid, but if you want to be part of our just Patreon,
a Patreon posse.
Oh yeah, you want to be part of the Patreon lineup? Go to patreon.com/TigerMinorReport, and you get, there's 2 tiers. There's a $3 tier and a $5 tier. The difference. The $5 tier will get you the scouting reports we have on our site. And we also, if you get the $3 tier, essentially, there's not really, I mean,
the $5 tier gets you whipped cream and cherry.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it just gives you a little more of that. But overall, we're actually, it said, and what's about the patreon.com too as well is if you're like, hey, can you guys break down a player or even on here, by all means. We'll take the time. We'll put some tape together, and that's what we'll do. But patreon.com/Tigers Minor League Report. Every Monday is a new StatCast article that we put there for our Patreon people. And so, again, we'll be back next Sunday. And I think, let's see, Toledo's home, so I might actually hit up a couple games in Toledo. They're
Toledo's
playing.
Home,
yep.
Erie's home. Lakeland's home. West Michigan is on a 12-game roadie.
Yeah, so Dan Hasty will be on the road for a while, I believe. I think.
Toledo is hosting Syracuse.
Yes, and the Mets have some pretty good prospects down there, so that's the reason why I want to head down there and that out. And again, thank you to Mark also for getting the GoFundMe together for everything. So we'll talk to you next week. Have a good week, everybody. I don't know why I was so hard time.